women against property grabbing, but also against being denied this opportunity to own land, which they can use as collateral, but also to develop or as agriculture, as farmers.
It's one thing, and I think it's a great initiative that you've shown on that particular issue, and looking forward to more countries following in that example. However, there are, as you point out, for cultural reasons, it's not going to be the easiest thing to implement. Just because somebody says, yes, it's a bill and we pass it and it's signed into law, implementation becomes a whole different issue. How are you addressing implementation of that particular bill that you have passed?
And normally, as a ministry, in our programs, we have made a deliberate effort to target women farmers. And this, within the country, the element of decentralization, we have tried as much as possible to put in some local institutions that will be looking at some of the issues. Say, for example, on the land, there are committees at community level that are responsible for manning the land issues. So we are going to use those committees to make sure that this law is being implemented according to the way it has been passed. And also, the women themselves, they are being mobilized, and they are in committees where they are working as a group, and therefore, so that their voices could also be held. So we are making sure that apart from using these other committees, but the women themselves are the ones that have been empowered to pioneer this, and also to make sure that they are not being denied their right of land as the Malawian citizens.
Minister Kalibata, how are you dealing with that particular question in Rwanda?
Thank you. We have similar laws of inheritance. Women and girls have as much rights as men to inheritance, and inheritance is not only land. In my case, livestock, money, whatever inheritance is there is passed on. So, but more so, we have what I would call affirmative action, specifically to ensure that some of these things are done. In most, administratively speaking, 30% of what we do in terms of jobs has to go to women. But women have taken advantage of it and become aggressive enough to even take more than 50%. But we have a parliament that is 56% women. Our cabinet, I think, is 30% women. So actually, men are becoming, now we need more affirmative action in Rwanda to take care of men. So, no, but seriously, so in the farmers, on the farm level, women produce 80% of the food. So we also have initiated a program that will help deal with some of these problems. For example, the One Cow Per Poor Family is a program that specifically goes and looks at some of the, women are dealing with nutritional issues in their houses. They are dealing with economic issues in their houses. These programs go to support this. We have credit schemes specifically for women. So schemes that women can access to, where they don't have to compete with men. So you give it to a woman or you don't give it away. So some of these things are in place to ensure, there are many, but these are just examples of what is in place to ensure that women do have the confidence to come up. Education, so many things that are being done to ensure that the girl child also becomes confident and person who will participate in what we're doing in society.
To avoid me being too greedy with time, because there are so many issues that I could ask the panelists without going to the floor, I want to be really fair and open up for comments, specifically perhaps questions, so we can try to table real examples of some solutions that are being put together across the continent. There are microphones in the same stages. I'm going to ask one more question and then I'll come to the floor. That'll give you sufficient time to make your way to the microphones. They're standing. There are two on each aisle across the room. Now, if I can come back, just so that the gentlemen don't feel left out, to you, Mr. Minister from Ghana, and if I could come to looking at an East Africa community perspective and encouraging gender equity, but perhaps more importantly, gender empowerment, so that women feel empowered to do what they need to do on the ground. You can share with us a little on how you're dealing with that, because it's a challenge most countries are facing.
I guess it's a real challenge. Let me do something that you don't want me to do. I will answer this one, but let me go very quickly to the policy consistency issue there that you missed. I wanted it to be very clear that policies don't necessarily change. In Ghana, for example, the Constitution has it very clearly that governments will continue policies that were initiated by preceding governments. It's in the Constitution. And then the Constitution also has set up the National Development Planning Commission, which is responsible for developing medium to long-term plan perspectives for the country. And then we have the various laws governing the policies that make the policies work, like the investment law, for example, which entails all the concessions and all. Ghana's investment law has operated for 16 years. It is now that we are reviewing the law. All governments that have come in between the 16 years, and there have been 3 such governments, have worked with the same policy consistency. We have the same for the Ghana Free Zone law and the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation law. It is now that we have found oil that we are coming up with a petroleum law. So the policies and laws have been very consistent. What has been the issue is non-transparent contracts that are most times, entered into by governments, which succeeding government then may want to tamper with. And that is what is misinterpreted as if policies are being tampered with. I thought I wanted to clarify that particular
But while
point.
you're clarifying that, you can't make that statement without telling us what you're doing about it.
It's being debated. In fact, just yesterday, a prominent leader of Ghana commented on that government should stop tinkering with contracts, because once you start, calling back contracts for review, it undermines the credibility of the country's investment arena. And so that debate keeps going on. But of course, we must talk to the politicians. You have to be transparent with the contract. Once transparency is established, nobody will change it.
Okay, so we'll put that on the list to come back to you and check in a year's time how you went on that point, yeah?
Okay. Now, gender.
Gender, please, yes.
We in Ghana have in the Ministry of Agriculture a women's desk. We call it the Women in Agriculture Directorate. And it's at that level of a directorate responsible for all women, activities in agriculture. They advocate, they push for programs, they educate, and this is a very dynamic women's unit within the Ministry of Agriculture, and they sit in every decision-making process. Of course, that's like the women's mouthpiece. And I have found that very, very encouraging working with this particular outfit, because when it comes to value addition activities and all, they train the women, they bring them in there, and a lot is going on in that direction. Outside agriculture, it's the same situation as my colleagues have mentioned. You have regulation, you have policies that ensure or that are asking for equity in gender issues. For example, access to education, girl-child education. There are clear-cut equity rules that there have to be 50-50 balance on access and intake into the school system. Indeed, in Ghana at the moment, I do believe that women are more in there, about 51% to 49% for school intake. So we are working vigorously towards this whole issue of gender balance. The president is on record to have said that he will give 40% of his administrative posts to women. He hasn't hit the 40% yet, and he's been taken on for that. But he has come at least a lot of, along the way, he's come very far in appointing women to key positions in the administration.
Okay, well, that's interesting, because I think it comes back to that point of making a policy and making the statement is one thing. Making it happen in reality seems to be a whole different story. If we could come to East Africa really, really quickly, because I want to take as many questions as we can from the floor.
Yes, thank you. At regional level, I think you heard about Minister from Rwanda saying in their parliamentary there are more than 50%. 56, so that's more than 50%. If you look at the new government of Burundi now, they have more than 40% of women in the government. Just to say that we are on the right trend. And in the secretariat where I'm based, let's say we have openings and new positions. After the merit, we consider gender balance. So we are on the right trend. We are